When trying to put together this video, I'm reminded of why I don't do these very often, because it's really hard to do these rankings. But I did one for the first half of the year. I figured I'll do a Q3 one and hopefully make it a little easier myself for the year-end one. Uh, Going from there. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be doing my top 10 Q3 reads. I realized I did this around the mid-year point, and I think it went over a little bit into June. So I thought I'd look back, because I have read quite a few books in Q3. I've been slowing down, but there were a couple of readathons in there where I got a lot in, and so I figured it'd be a good time to do a top 10 for Q3, because I'm so bad about doing these rankings, and it'll make it hopefully easier, like I said, for year end, if I can go back and look at what were my top 10 for the different parts of the year. So we'll see. So I have to say, there are, especially the further we get up the list, there's a lot of books that really are kind of interchangeable placed, because they're just books I really enjoyed. So this might not help as much for year end as well, because I feel like there are definitely things that can move around, but we're going to jump into it. Starting with number 10, which is Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker by Patricia Meredith. This is a historical mystery, and I don't have a physical copy yet. I did the audio for this, which was great. But I have been really interested to try more Patricia Meredith's work. And I did beta read one, which I haven't talked about a whole lot yet, because I think I need to wait on that one too. And then I read also her new book, Adita Dreadful, earlier this year. This is part of her Spokane Clock Tower series, which I very much need to continue. But I really enjoyed this, and it's one that just the more I thought about it, I really had a fun time. I liked the story, the characters, I liked the audio, I liked the mystery elements, I liked the historical fiction feel of it too. So I really enjoyed it, and I need to try out some more stuff, but it was a really solid book, and I'm excited to continue the series. Speaking of really solid books that I'm excited to continue the series, coming in at number 9 is A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart. This is one too that the more it sat with me, the more I've just really enjoyed this one, and I'm really excited to continue as well. This easily could end up moving up a list later on as well, but I just kind of put them in a ranking. Like I said, I'm not going to mess with it anymore, because it was too hard to do otherwise. This is a very politically driven type of fantasy, setting up a really interesting world and interesting situations as we see a kingdom that's trying to kind of refound itself in a new land. There was a ton here. I did do the audio for this actually as well, and I don't think there are audio for the next ones. I have them, and I'll be reading them physically. This is the kind of book I really enjoy reading physically as well, so I'm not too upset about it. But really great here with what this starts up, and it seems like it's going to set up a ton more coming on. So I'm really excited. I've heard good things about the other ones too, and with the writing style as it evolves, and so I'm really excited. I think I may enjoy the other ones even more than this one, but this was a great start with just another kind of interesting, with great characters, very politically driven, and so I'm excited to see what more is to come. And then next up at number 8, I grabbed the wrong book, so pay no attention to me as I quickly swap out book here. Number 8, I put Chaos Bound by David Farland. This is book 8 in Rune Lords, and this series I've enjoyed so much. And it's been, I think, overall mostly like a 4-star series, but this one just, it was so action-packed. It got back to some characters that I was missing. I had a blast with it. So although I'm still really hoping that the 9th book will come out someday, I enjoyed the heck out of the series, and this was a great book. And I really enjoyed it. I had so much fun with it. Rune Lords is a series I definitely think is slept on. Partially maybe because it was spaced out and the last book is not out yet, but I definitely recommend checking out. I made a couple of videos talking about Rune Lords. I still recommend checking it out. Even if it never gets finished, I had a really great time reading them. So I do recommend as well. Next up then we have A Hero in the Shadows, or Waylander Part 3. This was actually another audio. There are a lot of audio on here, which is interesting because, I spent a lot of my physical time reading the same series, which will definitely make an appearance here. So that probably tells you why that a lot of the other ones were. But I really enjoyed Drenai on audio. And this one was a nice surprise because I did not like Waylander Part 2 as much as I liked Waylander, but I've not read any David Gemmell book so far that I didn't at least enjoy. And this one, though, it's just brought me back to the Waylander character. It was doing something different. It did not feel like a rehash. It really felt like it was doing something very different, but then kind of the pulling him back into the action, setting up some stuff and kind of showing where some things originated that we explore in later books like Winter Warriors, which is also another one that's just sat really well with me. And the Drenai books, I feel like I enjoy the heck out of them while I'm reading them, and then as I think about them more and more, I really, really enjoy. So this one I decided to slot in here. I actually just started Legend of Deathwalker, so I'm really excited to continue. I don't have that many Drenai books left, so maybe I'll finish them by year end. Maybe. We'll see. I'd like to, but... Keeping the audio train going, we have Over London, and this is by George Penney and Tony Johnson. And this is a very comedic kind of thing. This was an audio copy that was sent to me for review. I just had a blast with it. It's one of those things when it's just the ones that I just love because they're hilarious. I usually try not to put them up super high because this was well written and it was great. But this is the only thing besides Discworld I've ever read that kind of had that feel of just the right amount of absurdity, but still interesting characters and interesting plot. It's got some of the gimmicks, but it also has a lot going on. And I had a blast with this one. If you like comedy, if you like the kind of the Discworld style, or looking for something that's not Discworld that has some of the same feel, this is definitely one to check out. I had a blast with it. Next up then, at number 5, and I'm not super surprised because I love this author, but with starting with a debut and having it be as good as it was, I don't know that I was expecting that. But we have Sorcerer's Legacy by Janny Wirtz. Now this is one we did do a buddy read for this one in Discord with several people. That were all reading. It was an unofficial, but a lot of people were reading. I know this was a bit hit or miss because of some of the content, because this does include violence towards children and some dark themes, and it got dark at times. And I wasn't really expecting that. But this is just very, very classic, kind of almost sword and sorcery, although focusing more on the sorcery element there, kind of fantasy, but the characters and the character study of the main character, who is just phenomenal, and like a real strong female character where it's not like you're not going to be told like I'm a strong female character. Like, no, you just see this character because of who they are and their strength and their fortitude. Fantastic character, fantastic book. One I definitely recommend checking out. Moves a lot quicker, a lot easier of a read, of course, than some of her later work as well. But for a debut novel, I was just really, really impressed with all the things here, the elements, and just how well that all fit together. Really, really great book. And then next up, which might surprise some people that it's not higher, but it gets really difficult with these later ones. And like I said, a lot of them could move around depending on how I'm feeling on a given day. But number 4 is In the Eye of the Bedlam Bride, which is Dungeon Crawler Carl 6. And this is still, when I started this one, it took me a while to get into it, which hasn't really happened, I don't feel like, with the other Carl books. But this one was doing a lot, getting a lot kind of set up and ready, and then just about halfway through, it is just going for it. I was so sucked in. I was so enjoying it. I'm not counting any of the other books because I did re-listen to the whole series prior to this coming out. But man, I love this series. The book did not disappoint. Once I got to the end, I just was absolutely mind blown, loving it. There was so much going on, and I cannot wait for the next book. So I talked a lot about Dungeon Crawler Carl. It is the exception to the rule of me not really caring for lit RPG. I just can't get enough of this series. I absolutely love it. Re-listening to it, if anything, I feel like I appreciated it a little bit more because the elements that I wasn't as much a fan of early on, now I'm like, oh, I see why they're there because there's so much more going on. And so I love Carl. I know I've talked about that a lot too. It's just absolutely, absolutely great. The next up we have is, as I was reading it, I knew this is going to be one of my top books of the year. Like I said, this definitely could end up going higher. I'm just not sure. But I absolutely loved it. Was Lord of a Shattered Land by Howard Andrew Jones. This, the author sent me this review copy, and it is just fantastic. This is old school sword and sorcery. It is very much what it's trying to be, but it is also has some modern elements too, and it's not, I feel like, falling into any of the pitfalls that you can sometimes get in old school sword and sorcery, but it's just a fantastically done version of it. The character of Hanuvar, this is the first book of the Chronicles of Hanuvar, is fantastic. The characters, the plot that's going on here, it's very episodic, and yet there is this overarching plot. You have this Lovecraftian horror at points, with the type of creatures that you get. So much going on here. Fantastic characters and action and plotting in a very episodic, very easy to read. This is a decently long book, but it reads so fast because there's a lot going on, and each part of it is just absolutely fantastic. Cannot recommend this enough. If you enjoy sword and sorcery, this is like a must read, I would say. And Liam's Lyceum also agreed that this was fantastic, for the record, because he actually knows what he's talking about with sword and sorcery, unlike me. So I will mention him because he also recommended it really highly, and really enjoyed it. And we did an interview of Howard Andrew Jones together, actually, because I wanted to make sure I had somebody who was a bit more familiar and well read in that area. But really fantastic. Really can't recommend enough. This was, I feel like, with the first part of the year, with The Will of the Many, was the book that I just loved so much more than I thought I was going to, even though I was expecting to enjoy it. And in the third quarter, it was definitely Lord of a Shattered Land. I expected to enjoy this, but I didn't know how much I was going to fall in love with it. So highly recommend. And then going to number 2, probably not that much of a surprise, but I had to put Gloves of Eons by Andrew D. Meredith. This is book 3 in Collation, and this is one of those things where it's so hard for a first book in a series to compete with the third book in one of my favorite series, because I love Collation. I love what's being done. I love so much about what was done in this book. I know I've talked about it a lot. I did do a review as well for this book, but there's just so much going on. I love these characters. I love the plot, how it's continued to build. I loved a lot of the really creative action sequences. It's one of my favorite series, so when there's a new entry there, it's likely it's going to be on the list. So you'll be seeing more, because there's a lot more to come of Collation as well. And it's another one I just can't wait to continue. But I love the way he world builds. The really interesting thing, it's I'd still consider this kind of slow burny with it, but there's a lot of world building going on. We're constantly developing these characters more and more. Each character has their own bigger picture items that are really coming to the fore as well, and there's always more coming in. It's a world where the gods are very much there, real and active, and seeing the paladins, the different religious orders, order coming against them. There's so much going on with all of the politicking between these groups. So many characters and scenes that I just love, and some characters I hate, or that I want to hate, but he won't let me because he keeps giving them redeeming qualities. If you know, you know. But yeah, I love this series, love this book. And when we get up to number 1, it's going to be another similar thing. Because number 1 is could be any one of many of the remaining of Wars of Light and Shadow by Janie Wirtz. I grabbed Storm Fortress because this was the easiest one to take off the shelf without you being able to see that it was gone, and also because it was just fantastic. I read, because Peril's Gate, I think, is the one that I picked for the first half of the year. I read Traitor's Knot, Storm Fortress, and then Initiate's Trial and Destiny's Conflict to finish up the ones that are out. Traitor's Knot, the plot moves so quickly. It's kind of self-contained. There was so much going on. It was fantastic. Storm Fortress is where it really hits you with the emotions, and it just really feels like the ending of an arc as well. This is almost like you could have kind of ended the series here if you wanted. Like, there's still so much more to come, but it just has this air of finality with the way that everything's handled. It focuses largely on a siege, but there's just so much to it, so much emotion, characters, and I love it. And then Initiate's Trial, which can be a little controversial because of the decision that's made, I loved it from the beginning. And Destiny's Conflict, once again, just does so much emotion, so much powerful character moments, so much more to the world. So I can't really pick. It's so hard to pick because usually my favorite Words of Light and Shadow book is the one that I just got done reading because they're just so fantastic. This is, I've said it, I know I still got to read the last book when it comes out, but this is my favorite series of all time. I can't imagine, I honestly can't imagine the last book not absolutely crushing it, delivering everything I want and things that I don't even know that I want. And I have not been anticipating a new book like this since I was waiting for Wheel of Time to be finished. There's never been anything else that was just like, I absolutely couldn't wait. And that was even dampened by the fact that I was nervous about it. I'm not even nervous. I'm just looking forward to. I don't know if I've ever really been like looking forward to a final book this much. I cannot recommend it enough that you guys check out Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wirtz. You saw even her debut was on here because it was fantastic. But Wars of Light and Shadow is her magnum opus. It is beautiful. It is amazing. It is a rich world. It is a hugely complex and great big world with amazing world building, and yet it's still a focused character story with these huge plots that still once again have this kind of intimacy with these characters. No matter how big and sprawling the plot gets, we're still intimately focused on these characters. It's just fantastic. If you're a character reader, if you're a plot-driven reader, if you're a world-building-driven reader like me, if there are others like that, it does all of it, and it just does it so freaking well. I've just been in love with this series and so much, and so we can call it Storm Fortress. I don't know. It's one of the other books that I've read because I've loved them all so much. So it had to be Worth Light and Shadow here at the #1 spot, and so it's probably gonna happen with the final book, Song of the Mysteries, next year when I get to read that as well. But I cannot wait. So those, though, are my kind of top 10 books that I read in Q3. A lot of great books, a lot of great competition, and especially with going back to so much of the great stuff that I read in the first half of the year, and a lot of great stuff that I've been reading since this, because I didn't cut this off. This is Q3. This is cut off is September 30th. So it doesn't include anything in October. And I've been off to a pretty good start in October with some great stuff that I've been reading as well. So I'm excited to continue reading and see what this is going to end up if I do a Q4 or if I just go for the full year. We'll have to see. But a lot of great stuff. Excited to continue. Let me know what some of your favorites were from the last quarter, and or what your thoughts are on any books that I talked about here. Always love to hear from you. Otherwise, make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether these books, other books, any books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.